Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Cardcast, episode 76, the best games of 2019 that we've played.
Important caveat.
I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm John Cage.
And I'm Andy Lewis. And that's not a long list, let's be honest.
It's an important caveat
bad
to make that.
Yes. Also, we should point out we are a man down. We are unfortunately, Rory is not going to be able to make it today, just due to Christmas conflict of schedules. Basically, it's he's probably putting like tinsel on a tree or something like that. He's got little kids. He's busy with Christmassy shit.
Rumour has it they take up a lot of time, John.
I think he's just, well, we'll see. I think he's just trying to get out of it. I mean, first of all, he burns his hand on a frying pan. Now he's got family commitments, in inverted quotes. I think he's just going off us. I think that might be it. It was a short but beautiful run while we had him.
It could also be, he did say in the notes, he's lost interest in 2019 now. He's just interested in 2020. He's looking forward rather than back, but we're looking back.
Whereas we're going into 2020 arse first. God. Yes.
So yes, this is our Best of the Year podcast where we're going to look at the games of 2019. Of course, the caveat, as per usual, comes in. We cannot have possibly played every single game that came out. We have tried in some circumstances and we have failed abysmally. We can't even say we've played the top 100 games come out this year. Although I did look at my stats. I've played 135 different games this year.
That's quite good.
That is pretty good.
That's 2.5 a week.
Yeah.
That's good going.
That's not bad at all, that.
I don't even think I've played that many this year. New ones, anyway.
I can say with some confidence that I have definitely played less than that.
I don't know. Because I don't keep track of the games I've played, because, well, I don't really care that much. But Laura seems to be more interested in it now. She says, right, in 2020, we're going to keep track of the games we played. Okay. Just, I think, more to drive the fact that there are still games on my shelf that I haven't played yet. Not many, but my pile of shame is not very big these days, which is good. But yes.
Mine's massive. I need to do something about it.
That'll be interesting, actually, what the percentage, because you probably own less games than me and Andy. I wonder if you actually have more games on your shelf of shame than we do.
Proportionally, I'm 100% certain that that's the case. We have collectively quite a varied taste, but the crossover of our tastes is fleeting. You know, it shifts around a bit. There's no real consistency.
It's a very small area of the Venn diagram, is what you're trying to say.
It is.
Yeah. However, there are some games that at least 3 or 4 of us own, and those are in line for the coveted Polyhedron Collider 3 for 4, or indeed 4 for 4.
Yes, we've had to tweak it this year because of that usurper, Rory. Last year it was the 3 for 3 award because there's only 3 of us, and now there's 4 of us. But I still think 3 is a worthwhile number because I think that's still important.
Here's the magic number, and there's only 3 of us here, so could we go back to 3 for 3 now? Now we've kicked him out. I mean, obviously got rid of him for a day.
Technically, this is still an upgrade from last year because last year I'd just been given some really shitty news and I didn't do it. So last year it was just the 2 of you.
It was. It was.
Fair
It was
enough.
a lot more chatty than normal as well.
Yes.
It would appear that without wranglers, Steve and Andy can go down rabbit holes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, me and Andy talk nonsense. What a surprise.
No, indeed, yeah.
I think you guys have actually gotten more concise this year, even when I'm not on the podcast.
I have made a concerted effort to be slightly more concise than my usual verbose and flamboyant self, which I don't know if it's worked or not, but...
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. Not all the time. Anyway,
No.
without further ado, it is time for the highly coveted 3 for 3 and 4 for 4 award. So, yes, we have, as I said, 2 different awards this year. So the coveted 3 for 3 is only one game. I actually was surprised by this. We've actually got 1 game for the 3 for 3 and 1 game for the 4 for 4.
3 for 4.
3 for 4. Is that what we're calling it? Are we decided on 3 for 4, have we?
Well, there are 4 of us. And 3
Oh,
of us
yes,
own it,
okay then.
so...
3 for 4 then. Okay then. The coveted 3...
3 should be the number of counting.
Yeah, the number of counting should be 3.
Out of 4, not 3.
Because we've got 1 game that 3 of us have got, all 3 of us got, but we've got 2 games that all 4 of us have got, and I thought it would be the opposite way around. I thought we'd have a bigger stack. So, our 3 game is Villagers from Sinister Fish Games.
Yes.
Yep. All three of us have it, in fact.
That's true, yes. Did we all get it at UK Games Expo?
I kickstarted it, so I had it before them.
I think you got it at Sexpo? No, that's something else, Andy. Did you?
I most certainly did not. I got it at the UK Games Expo, yeah. So I played it with Steve and Amanda. I think it was like a day or two before the expo. I played it once and went, yep, that needs to be in the library.
Yeah, Alora played it at Expo. I didn't because I was too busy faffing around on some tabletop software affair. Not too dissimilar to Roll20, but a lot more complicated. But Alora was off playing Villagers. She came back saying it's quite interesting, but she didn't get to play a full game. So she was a little curious to see how it ended. So me, being my usual self, went, right, let's find that out, and bought the game.
Obviously.
Fair enough.
But you know what? I'm glad I did. It's really bloody good.
It is. And I think we're going to mention this game a little later as well.
Are we?
So we are indeed.
Is that you DMing
Foreboding.
Foreshadowing? Yeah.
Yes. So we have 2 4-for-4 games, though, which again I was quite surprised at. Now, the first one actually came out last year, which is what happens with this little award. Games come out and we slowly build up our likeness of them. And the first one is Dice Hospital, which I bought at Aircon after playing it with John. We had a similar thing. Amanda was like, we need to have this in our collection. We're buying it. And you are buying the super deluxe version with the little plastic ambulances as well.
Definitely. Now, I kickstarted it, so I got it whenever it came out last year. I think it was May or June last year, I think. It's been a while. Something like that.
Quite a while.
Yeah. Played it here. Played it with John and Caroline, actually. I think you guys came over and played it for the first time, and then at which point you went away and went, yes, I'm having this.
Yep, basically.
Yes, it's a bloody good game from Alley Cat Games. Very straightforward in its operation. Bit of a dice draft, bit of an upgrade draft, and then everyone does their thing, and then John wins.
Yeah, mostly. But not,
Yeah, that
but
seems
not
to be the
always.
case, yeah.
We did have one game in on holiday over the summer. Someone else beat me.
Wow,
One game. How many
Yeah.
times you played this game, John?
In the region of sort of 10, that sort of amount.
Yeah, okay.
Thing is,
Still think you're cheating.
quite like engine building games. It's a bit like watching Andy play. What was the game? Barrage, was it? No. Something where you guys were getting very angry about Andy.
Trismegistus.
That's the one. There we go.
Where Andy saw for the Matrix on it and could just, yeah, I need to do this, and this. Not quite like David Turksey playing Tapestry when we played with him, but similar.
I'm trying to block that experience out. It's made me feel quite inadequate.
Although, to be
tell you
fair,
what-
you were right with Barrage as well, John. I don't know, I seem to have a knack with that as well, because everyone I've played that against has just been absolutely demolished.
As a slight aside, I played a game last week called Clinic, which Adam had kickstarted, and the Kickstarter version came out. And that's very, very, very similar to Dice Hospital, but it's like a super heavy Euro version.
Hello.
So it's exactly the same. You take patients, you hire doctors and you hire nurses, and you build a little hospital. The difference is you actually have to build the hospital and lay out the rooms correctly because people have to move between rooms.
Right.
So it's more like Theme Hospital than Dice Hospital.
Yeah, it's more like Theme Hospital. But what's even better is all the doctors, all the nurses, all the orderlies, and all the patients have to bring their car, and you have to allow for car parking spaces.
That's amazing.
So if you make the hospital too big, there's nowhere for doctors, nurses, and patients to park. And if you don't build a car park, they all line up on the road outside and just park on the street wherever they can.
I mean, that doesn't
brilliant.
sound that far from reality. You do sort of wonder sometimes when these games get a bit too close to the bone. When does it actually stop being a game and start being like, is someone just watching this game and just deciding, like, okay, well, that's a good decision. You know, I've seen how this eventuality plays out. So, yep, we need 3 more car parking spaces for the nurses, and then we'll avoid the riots.
So the final game on our coveted 4-for-4 award is Tiny Towns from AEG.
Absolutely. Rightly so.
Yes, I agree. Now, we all played this, I think, for the first time. I know you didn't, did you, Steve? At City of Games.
I didn't play at City Games. No, you two played it, and John was so enamoured with it that he purchased it like within minutes, kind of thing. And to Did I play it at City of Games? Did I play it in between City of Games and Aircon? I think maybe you'd brought it over, John, or something.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Sounds about right, yeah. I mean, this is one of those weird, definitely crosses over on the Venn diagram, because it has, I think, all the aspects of a really, truly great game in the sense that, well, other than we all like it, but it has that important, meaningful decision. And by God, if you don't make the right decision, you...
In fact, I reckon about 2/3 of the way through pretty much every single game, at least one person, if not everyone in the game, has a moment where they go, shit.
Yep.
No, I should have put that thing over here because then I won't be able to do this thing. And why are you keep still picking up more and more glass? No one needs any more glass, John, for the love of God.
We're not building greenhouses.
I like greenhouses.
So, I know we've described this, but for those who don't, it's a game in which you have a simple 4x4 grid. And all you're doing is really putting coloured cubes onto the grid, but you're trying to do it in a pattern to make buildings. And these patterns are varied. There's lots of different buildings, and basically score points based on the buildings that you've got. Mm. But it's so simple yet so effective.
Yeah.
And you can play, and it plays up to 6 out of the box. I swear you could combine 2 of these and play it with 12.
Oh, easily.
And it wouldn't affect the gameplay, especially if you play with the Town Hall rules, which we tried last week, actually, for the first time.
How did you find them?
Well, we played with 2-player, and with 2-player we found it much better.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is that the one where you draw the cards?
Mm. Yes, you draw the cards. You've got a random deck of cards which choose what you're going to do.
Yes.
But on the third round, you both pick whichever one you want.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you a little bit more control, but you're still at semi-randomness, because it would be in a deck of cards. Of course, it'll run through the entire deck of cards. I think there's 3 cards of each resource. So you've got a little bit of predictability with it. It doesn't diminish it. Okay, you get rid of the dick move, which is like the staple of tiny towns. But
which is why we've never played with that rule. That's not true. We tried it once and decided that it wasn't as much fun.
How many people did you play with, though?
I've always played it with at least 4, I think.
Okay, I think that makes sense, because with 4 you can be a little bit more dickish without it ruining somebody's game completely, whereas this felt really good for a 2-player game, because it wasn't just a case of, you're just picking what the other person doesn't want rather than what you want.
Yeah, that makes more sense. For smaller games, I could see the appeal. I think it's one of my most played games this year.
Okay. It's a really good one for our Thursday night. It's very popular for our Thursday night in Bewdley as well, because we only have about 2.5 hours to play. So it means that it's really easy to set up. It's 5-minute setup. It's a really quick teach. Everyone who hasn't played it before picks it up really quickly. And, of course, it's a really quick teardown as well. So, and as you say, it supports 6. It's quite an inclusive game. So I think it pretty much ticks all the boxes. Yep. It's really, really good.
Expansion coming out in 2020 as well.
Ooh, that's...
So it'll be interesting to see what that adds to the game.
That's one to keep an eye on.
A special thing we've added in just for John here.
Oh, you guys.
Yeah, because when we asked John, when we were chatting offline, what his favourite game of 2019 was, he mentioned a game from 2018, from early 2018.
Most games I mention are from previous years.
Yes. So we basically said, just for him, we now have a new category in the podcast, which is John's best new game to you of 2019, which preferably is a game that didn't come out in 2019. So a bit of love for the older game. So do you want to kick us off then, John, with your choice?
Well, you did say one game, but they're kind of tied for me.
Okay, you picked 2, but you haven't picked any later on, so it's fine. You're even out.
Yeah, I may have picked some more further down. Anyway. So I must admit, I do have a tendency to not climb quite on board the bandwagon of new the way that Andy does, and so
climb on board. I think I drive that wagon.
Yeah, you're probably true.
He's riding like a rodeo with a cowboy hat. Going, yeah, come on!
I think I'm so far behind the curve. I've only heard of Andy's exploits. It's like it's way down the trail. He's a different state away. However, yes. Couple of games that have been new to me in 2019 that have previously been out are Sagrada and Space Base. Both excellent games, quite different, although they both involve dice.
We have previous on Space Base, just in case, because I know there will be a lot of people who listen to this episode who haven't listened to like our entire backlog, because we do get a lot more listeners on this one. And I would say that Yeah, we have differing opinions on Space Base, don't we, Andy?
Yes, we do. Most of us say it's shit.
and yet, having said that, we still buy it. Is that right, Andy?
Shh. There's something about it that tweaks my
Yes,
curiosity. But the thing is, it is not a good game.
I disagree with that.
You can disagree all you wish.
So, for me, Space Base is simple. It's easy to pick up. You can teach it to anyone in about 5-10 minutes, except the rules about the charge cubes, which some people kind of get and other people will never get, ever. I've given up.
That is because the rulebook is f***ing awful.
There are a couple of bits that are somewhat ambiguous, I'll agree with that. And along our time playing it, we found at least 2 or 3 ways that break the game. We've actually removed a card. But let's put those bits aside. Let's not worry about those.
Let's not get bogged down in the game not actually basically functioning, you know.
No, the game works. The bits that we found flaws in have been corrected with a later rule book that I don't have. And we've removed 1 card from the game, and since then, absolutely love it. Always have a really good game. It's always a fun game, and people come away smiling and generally shouting about something going wrong for them. You can get a bit of downtime from a bit of analysis paralysis, especially because it's kind of hard to plan your turn when the cards that you can buy coming up change. But I'm still finding new combos in that game. Still come up to it and go, oh, that's clever. I've not seen that thing work together before. And you're stuffed again. Sorry, guys.
Yes. Now, I mean, for anyone who hasn't played or seen Space Base, it's basically a kind of a sci-fi version of Machikoro, if you're familiar with that. I genuinely think it's actually better than Machikoro. I will admit that. It's a bit more interesting than Machikoro, and that is one of the reasons I bought it. But
it's very pretty as well.
It is very pretty. The artwork's quite whimsical.
Very Futurama-y.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, actually. And there is a lot more going on with it, so there's a bit more choice and there's a bit more you can do with it. The issue I find with it is that it takes far too long to get going. By which time you kind of got to the end of the game and everyone's finished, which isn't that great.
So how many times have you played it, Andy?
I don't know, 4 or 5.
Because I find, generally speaking, if a reasonable number of people have played the game before, the first few rounds whip past pretty quick.
I agree with Andy on this one. It's not the first few rounds, though. I think the game takes... The last time we played, I'd really noted it. The game got going 3/4 of the way through our playtime.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, I won't disagree that it does feel like your engine's just taking off when the game ends.
This is a bit of a repeat of what we said earlier. I don't feel as if I had any engine until I had an engine, and then it's like, oh, well, the game's over.
Yeah.
You could always double the maximum score.
What make it longer?
Actually,
make the game which already outstays its welcome longer.
Said it doesn't. He just said it finishes too soon. So the answer is make it go longer.
No. The answer is that it needs to get going quicker.
They need to accelerate the setup, which there is an accelerated setup to it.
Is there?
Yeah,
fair enough.
I haven't used it. I don't know what it does, but it does. It basically says, look, if you're playing with more than 4 or 5 players, for the love of God, use the accelerated setup rules, or words to that effect. I haven't done them. I don't know what they are, but it looks like. Are they? What do they do?
I'd tell you if you stop talking for a minute. So
it's Andy. It's not going to happen.
Essentially, they give you a draft of cards at the beginning of the game.
Right.
So you start off with more cards, so you have more of an engine to go with. Problem is that they're not 100% picked by you, and because of that, you can end up with someone gets a lucky set of cards at the beginning, and they are off.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's like, okay, yes, it accelerates the game, but it tends to accelerate one person unfairly, in my experience.
Right.
So I don't know. Personally, I don't find it all that slow. I quite like the plotting of where you're going to go and how you're going to adjust your engine as things go along. But to each their own.
Indeed.
The fact that you bought it, though, that does say a lot, Andy. Even though you have these reservations, you still went out and bought it.
Oh, I did, yeah. As I say, it was more because of our gaming group in Bewdley, because we tend to play the lighter games on a Thursday night, and Space Base definitely falls into the category. As you say, it's quite a quick teach. It's not a complicated game, other than the slight nuances every now and again where you get two combinations of cards that break the whole thing. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward to play. So even newer gamers can pick it up, and it is literally just roll dice, do something, next player. So once you get that momentum going, as you say, it does rattle along reasonably okay. Unless people start yapping, then it's just, it really can slow right down, which is quite annoying. But as long as people pay attention, it's not too bad. I am slightly more interested in the first expansion, which is the Emergence of Shy Pluto.
Have you played that yet?
No, not yet. Which is kind of a legacy resettable campaign bit where it releases new cards as you go through the game. I haven't looked at it in any great detail. It says you're not supposed to go through the deck, but I accidentally, because I bought like the second expansion, which comes with the new box, and it's actually quite a nice little insert once you've set it all up and sleeved everything. Because the cards obviously get quite a lot of wear. They come, the second expansion comes with a shitload of sleeves. So I spent about an hour sleeving all those cards, which makes a real big difference actually. It's really quite nice sleeves, custom sleeves. And I dropped, basically. I put them all into this box, and the entire expansion just went poof. So I had to start scooping them all up. Thankfully, they're all numbered, so I could put them back in the box without too much looking
two-card
at
pick them up.
Pretty much, yeah. So I haven't looked at them in any great detail. All I know is that there's about 8 or 9 sections of it where you release a number of cards into, presumably, the card pool. I don't know exactly. And there's a few other bits and bobs in the little box. But as I say, I haven't looked at it in any great detail because you're not supposed to.
Ironically, I think the expansion did come out this year.
I think it did, yes.
Nice segue.
And you haven't played it, have you, John?
No, I don't own it.
Oh, dear. Well, my pick, I'm going to say, actually, is for the same reasons John likes this game, like Space Base. It's the reasons why I like my pick, because it is kind of an engine builder, and it is an engine builder where you have to change things as you go along. It's just something more complicated. And that is Great Western Trail.
Yes.
Which is a game everyone was banging on about 2 years ago when I finally got around to playing it. So this is a game which most people have probably heard of by now, but it's a game in which you're effectively just driving cattle across America. So you're driving cattle across the board and you basically move along the board. It's like a worker placement, but you have to move along a predetermined path. And you can build buildings along this path to give you more options. But the main aim of the game is it's a bit like a deck builder. You're a deck builder of your herd of cows. And you're trying to get the most money and points for your cows at the end of the game. But I just love it because it's a game, it's one of those games, and I find there's quite a lot at the moment with Yuri-style games, where explaining the rules takes absolutely bloody ages. Because there's 200 different things you can do. But once you start playing, it's like plonk, 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 off you go.
Yeah.
You know, it just flows, and it flows nicely, and I think it's got a perfect game length, and it's nice and thinky. But if you want, you can just race to the end and just sell cows, and you're fine.
I really like it, so I do agree with you on this that GWT is a fantastically good game. Because I first played it at yours because you were itching to play it, so we did play it. Turns out we got a few of the rules wrong, but never mind. We didn't know that at the time, but we all had fun. Went away and played it again. And I ended up buying it as well. I played it with our Worcester Gaming Group. It turns out we were at Richie's birthday, and it turns out all 4 of us around the table had played totally different versions of it because we'd all got a different rule wrong. So we had to go. We got about a quarter of the way through the game and went, you know what? We can't carry on. We had to basically just start again and all agree that, right, this is what this rule means. But it is really, really good. I am bloody awful at it. I don't know why. I'm just terrible at it. But I really like it. It's a very, very clever game. And as you say, Steve, it's quite simple once you get going.
Yeah.
As I played it with you guys a little bit. I think we got 2/3 of the way through the game and then we had to go home or something like that. We didn't quite finish it, if I remember right.
Yeah, we played it at yours and we had to go, yeah.
That was it. But I really enjoyed the bit that we did play. It felt like the engine was kind of heading in the right direction for another Johnny Cage wins, and then you guys left untriumphantly.
So
coincidence? I think not.
Wasn't done on purpose, honestly.
Ow, why are you kicking me, Steve? Oh, right, yeah, that thing we've got to go home to.
So, yes, very good. I mean, Great Western Trail, I think, came out in something like 2015. It's a few years old now.
It's a couple of years. It's a few years old now, yeah. I think it came out in 2016, which is the same year like Terraforming Mars came out. And it's a year which was a top year for games, I think.
My choice is, well, from a list that is quite extensive. However, there were 2 or 3 that stuck out for me, but I will settle on one. Root was a big one. Now, we all played Root earlier this year at City of Games again, admittedly after a few beers.
I will say that is Rory's choice as well, was Root.
Yes. It's a very clever game. It's very divisive, though. I think there's a lot of members of the community that really love it. I'm one of them. I think we're all big fans of it. But it does seem that it does have its haters as well, because for fairly reasonable reasons, the rulebook's bloody awful and it's getting a rewrite, which is good for the new expansion Kickstarter that's coming out early 2020. Guess who's back that?
We're not taking that bet, Andy.
The game is very complicated in a way because everyone plays a different game. And it's a game that you have to play before you can play it. Because it's impossible to explain how everyone can play the game, because everyone has a different faction, and every faction works really, really, really differently. But it is very, very pretty. It's got very whimsical artwork, and it's definitely a game that you should try, even if you end up not liking it. But it is not my best to me. The one I have chosen for that is Too Many Bones, which was...
Interesting.
Yes, which was released in 2017 by Chip Theory Games. I saw it actually last year, 2018, at Expo on their big stand there, and I drooled a lot over that, which looked fantastic. It's incredibly well produced. You might say slightly overproduced, but I could argue probably not, because everything it's there that is used.
Steve's nodding.
It is, but
it is overproduced. They could have. I think so. They could have made a slightly cheaper game, more financially accessible game. Because that's one thing. I played it with you, and I really like this game, but I'm never going to buy it.
No, that's fair enough. It isn't
because
cheap.
It's not cheap. No.
Now the base box, which is quite big, is £93 RRP. Which is, I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, that even makes FFG games look pretty cheap. So even Mansions of Madness and stuff is cheaper than that. But for the fact that it's a dice-based RPG, for anyone who doesn't know, so it's a little bit more like the video games than an actual sort of D&D RPG, for example. You're just rolling dice, you're building up characters as you go to do little sort of daily missions, which are done from a little deck of cards that you pre-make. And the game sort of scales up quite quickly as you go through the game. The ultimate is to try and go and build yourself up so you can kick the crap out of the big bad before the time runs out. And there's so many options in the game. There's loads of different characters you can be, and you can upgrade your character however you want with all these wonderful dice, which are extremely well produced. As Steve says, they probably could have got away with something slightly cheaper, but it does look lovely. And I can't stop playing it. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
I still need to play this, and I know that I'm going to really enjoy it.
I think you will. You will absolutely love it.
Yeah, it is very, very clever and very cool as well. It's not. It could have been quite generic, but it's not. It's the way it does this, like the way your skills of these dice and the way you pick these dice and level them up is really quite clever. And the way you use them, I remember thinking, I've got all these dice I can use. Oh no, you can't use them, Stephen, says Andy. You can only use these.
Nope, that's not for you. You can only use these for now. They're for later.
Well, with my track record, that could be my game of 2020 then.
It may well be.
2021.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
No, it's very good.
So those are the things we enjoyed that were new to us. But we have another coveted award. It is, of course, the much anticipated Andy's Insert of Choice Award 2019.
Indeed. Here we go. Now, this year has been a reasonably good year. In we go. It has been a particularly good year.
Jesus Christ.
I couldn't let that one go, could I? It's an insert of choice. You got to go in with it.
Yes, so 2019 has actually been a reasonably good year. Now, for those of you who with a bit of OCD like me, and you like your stuff organised quite nicely, this may be of interest, as well as the people who work tirelessly to bring us vac-formed plastic inserts for our games, so that when you stick it on the shelf, the whole thing doesn't fall out like Lords of Waterdeep. And this year, there have been 5 games that have caught my eye, really. One of them was Nantinarking, although I'm ruling that out straight away because it is literally just a miniature mould with a lid on it, and then everything else just sits in the box and goes everywhere, so we'll forget that. However, there are 4 now on the list, and there are 2 categories, really. 2 of them are more like the way that they're basically cardboard boxes in cardboard boxes, and these are Ragusa, which we all love. It's a very, very good game, and that was released this year.
You say we all love it. I've still not played it.
God damn it, John.
I think I probably will love it.
Yes, I think you will love it as well. And also Neta Tanka, which I don't think either of you have played yet, which is
I've not played
fairly
that,
straightforward-ish worker placement, which is sort of set around... it is-ish straightforward. It's a worker placement with a twist, but it's quite straightforward and it's an easy teach. But the point is they have cardboard boxes inside them. Now, Ragusa's is really clever. Literally, you put all of the players' counters inside the little cardboard box, which is the height of the main box, and you hand the cardboard box. There are all of your bits. And that's it. So that's really, really straightforward. It means that setup and teardown are very, very straightforward, and it all looks very pretty and very easy to clean away. The other 2 are the Deep Madness Profundum and Monstrum. Now, we all know that I love Deep Madness. It's a wonderful game, and these are basically outputs of the recent sort of second printing of the game, but they're basically just 2 bloody great boxes in which you put all of the cards and miniatures in the 2 different boxes. But the insert itself is designed, obviously, around the all-in backing level. Obviously, I did. And it all fits really, really well. It makes the game really, really well organised. It all sits in the box, and it all fits really, really well. The other one is the Trikeron Collector's Edition. And this insert is made by Game Trays. Now, we've previously given them awards last year for Endeavour Age of Sail and the Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig, and another one, which I forget offhand now.
They've done well in the past, let's put it that way.
They have done well. It does appear they know what they're doing. And the Trikeron Collector's Edition is another example of this, where you get, like in Endeavour, you get a player box with all the stuff in it, and you just hand it off to the player and go, there's all your stuff. So it's another one of those. It's all well neatly packed. All the components fit in really, really neatly, although, hilariously, there is no actual guide to actually where all this stuff goes. And believe me, the Collector's Edition is massive. There's a lot of stuff. But it all fits, and it all looks fantastic. So my ultimate decision is going to be the Trikeron Collector's Edition wins my insert of choice, because it's all very neat, very tidy, and very sexy. So well done, Game Trays. You have won another award.
You can go ahead and print out another award for yourselves. That did make us laugh last year. We got sent some pictures of some trophies that they'd made on our behalf.
Yes.
Yes.
That was very cool. That made us laugh. That was brilliant.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So, unfortunately, before we go on to the main kind of what have been our top games of the year, I think I'm going to break the fourth wall a little bit and tell you what originally happened. Andy wanted to put a category in called the Brown List, which was all the shit games he played. And I said, no, we're not going to do that.
Because it was too long.
Because it was just too long, yeah. And most of the games no one's ever heard of. They were that shit, no one had heard of them.
It's true.
So what we decided to do with the games that actually were a bit of a disappointment for us. So we put a few games each which we thought were something which we were really looking forward to, but then didn't meet that hype, basically. So again, it's a relatively short list. I don't want to dwell on this one too long because I want to try and be positive in this podcast if we can. I'll start, actually. I'll say I was really, really looking forward this year to Star Wars Outer Rim. And Star Wars Outer Rim is, I don't think we've actually mentioned it in the podcast before, but I played it with you, Andy, haven't I?
Yep.
And I played it solo a couple of times. It's not a bad game. I just didn't think it was a very exciting game.
Agreed.
In what sense? What bit were you most excited about that didn't deliver?
Well, I wanted to feel like Han Solo or Boba Fett or a smuggler or a bounty hunter, and it just felt quite pedestrian.
Okay.
I went somewhere, I draw a random card, I might have got a bounty out of it, I went somewhere else, draw another random card, I found my target, I rolled a dice, I've got my target. And then went back and delivered it.
Rinse and repeat.
And then rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's designed as a 2-player game. Is it designed as 2 or 4? I can't remember.
1 to 4.
1 to 4.
Sounds like Star Wars Talisman to me.
No, it's not that bad.
It's not far off. No, well, it's not far off that chemical design. If you think of Talisman as like a pick up and deliver game in which you're picking up a quest and then you go deliver the quest, it's that you're doing missions. You're either picking up bounty from one area to another, or you're going after someone and shooting them, or you're just trading material. Sometimes you can just do the old elite thing of buying stock at one planet and go and sell it at another planet. It just didn't seem very exciting.
No, agreed. It was, and you couldn't really interact with each other that much either. The only way you could really do it, if I remember rightly, was if I got a bounty before you did. We both end up going after the same person for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I had just happened to pick it up before you did, and that was about it. Otherwise, you're just kind of pootling around the game, kind of on your own, not really doing very much else. So yeah, I can see your point. Very pretty, and it's fairly.
It's very pretty, yeah.
Fairly well made, but yeah, you're right. It wasn't interesting.
I also felt it was a bit stingy.
Yeah, there wasn't.
Now I
much
know
in
there's a whole thing for keeping the cost of the game down. I know it's FFG, so there's cards for all the different kinds of jobs you can do, and there's all cards for all the different locations you can go. But after 2 games, you've seen everything.
Right. That's frustrating.
It just felt like, it felt like, well, I want this to be more. I want this to be a different adventure every time. But it felt like, all right, I can go here. I can get this bounty. Just got to find him now. Oh, it's the same one. I know what the effect's going to be, because it even had the kind of the Fallout numbered deck.
I was about to suggest it's exactly the same as Fallout. Once you've played Fallout a couple of times, you've gone through all the starting missions. You know what the answers are. You're absolutely right.
They could have done with some sort of system a bit more like City of Kings, where when you pull the monster or whatever the quest is out of the bag, there's some element that randomizes some aspect of it, maybe.
They've tried to make it more story-based. They've tried to put a narrative behind it, whereas City of Kings is... it's more trying to make a narrative from the stories you're having, if that makes sense, adventures.
Yep.
But this is actually trying to put an actual narrative on it. So,
in which case, you are going to be limited.
Yes.
Yeah. Andy, how about you? What was your biggest disappointment for 2019? Board gaming wise, I mean.
There are 2, although one of them is on Steve's list as well, and the other one is actually on Rory's list. So I'll go with that one and speak for him in his absence, which is Jonathon Strange and Mr. Norrell. Which I think it's fairly safe to say that we were all pretty disappointed with that game. Now, we've talked about it a couple of times. We first played it at Expo, right at the end of Expo, when we were all absolutely banjaxed and just we could not absorb information if we tried. So we all sort of we're going to give it another crack of the whip, just to see if it was just us and we weren't playing it wrong or badly. And it turns out, no, we were playing it correctly, and the game is just not very good. The ultimate idea is that you are a bunch of magicians or would-be magicians, and you're all trying to take down the man with the thistledown hair. And he grows steadily in power during the game. You grow in some power during the game. The idea is you're trying to do little sort of feats of wonder during the game, which gives you more power, and eventually you can take this guy down. The problem is the enemy, the fairy, just becomes too powerful too quickly, and it's just almost impossible to catch him. And we just felt it was just silly. It just became not very much fun.
Yeah, that's a nice summary.
It became a little tiresome, in fact. We even got to the point where we actually went mathematically through the game and went, this is the distribution of cards. Statistically, this is going to be the average increase of power of the man, and therefore this is going to be the number of tokens you're actually going to have to play every round. And we got to the point where, do you know what? That statistically is so unlikely that you might as well just not bother playing. So, big disappointment, because I know Rory especially was really interested in playing it. So I think he's read the books. I think you two have as well, or at least you've seen the TV show.
I've seen the TV show.
I've only played the board game. That's it.
Yeah, me too. And yeah, Rory particularly was massively disappointed with this. He thought it was okay when he first played it, but then played it again and then realised that it was shit.
That first time he played it, he was getting pretty angry, I seem to recall.
That was me, wasn't it?
Was it you?
Like Rory
No,
quite
he was getting
enjoyed it.
angry with us, I think.
Yeah.
I think he quite enjoyed it. I think he was trying to remain upbeat about it. I think he wanted to be positive. And I think when he got to the second game, he kind of went, actually, no, you guys were right. This is bad.
It's just a shame because it is beautiful. The artwork's lovely. The idea of it's nice. The mechanics themselves are perfectly fine. It's a fairly straightforward game. It just doesn't work, which is a shame.
Yeah, for me, it felt like the story part was really cool, but it didn't quite tie into mechanics cleanly enough. And like you say, it was almost impossible to win. And that's not always a bad thing. I mean, we all enjoy playing things like Mansions of Madness, in which we inevitably lose quite a lot, but probably not to the same extent that we'd have playing this particular game.
The thing with Mansions, though, is Mansions is a cooperative game. This was a competitive game where no one could win.
Yes, true.
Which was just felt wrong. It felt like it was supposed to be a cooperative game, and the game had got lost in translation somewhere down the line.
Yeah, and at least with Mansions, you go into that thinking, oh, I might be able to win. Whereas in this, you can go into it pretty much guaranteed you're not. So it's just pointless.
Mr. Cage.
Leading up to the expo, I got really excited about a game called Cloudspire because it seemed like it was going to be a really nice balance of nice chips that you shuffle around a board, a kind of MOBA kind of team, multi-way team kind of game, and not just a two-player MOBA, but like 3 ways, so 3 of you advancing across a map to try and destroy one another's bases. All the kind of stuff that I saw leading up to the expo looked really exciting, and I was really excited to give this game a go. Steve and I went and demoed it on the stand first. I think you guys got a go a bit later, is that right, Andy?
Things are the way around. I think Rory and I played it first, then you guys went up later. But either way, we've all played it.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe it was just, we did get quite a brief demo, and I haven't found a chance to play it since. But both demos that you guys had and the demo that we had, none of us came away thinking, oh yeah, that is a fantastic game. That's the thing that John had talked about, that got excited about. I don't know, it just never quite delivered somehow.
I agree. Rory and I sat down, because I went to see it mostly because I'd got too many bones. It was on the same stand. It's by Chip Theory Games, and you can tell, because obviously they've gone for the same, well, let's make lots of pretty chips and throw them at the game, and therefore it's going to win. But having played another tabletop MOBA, which we've covered in the past, called Guards of Atlantis, I was a little suspicious, thinking that tabletop MOBAs just don't work, basically. They just become tedious. But I agree, John, it was boring more than anything else. It was pretty obvious every time when it was your go what you should do. I mean, you had freedom to do whatever you want, but it made sense to do like the most obvious thing, defend your tower or attack your bad guy, because that's what you need to do at that point in the game. So there was very little thought involved for me.
I mean, I quite like the idea that you had these stacks of chips and that you're adjusting what things go in which stacks, and then you send them off across the board. Like, that's quite a cool, I don't know, it felt like quite a cool mechanic to me. But the actual reality of doing it is, as you say, it becomes kind of mechanical in the experience that we had. To the point where it's like, well, that's going to keep on going over to there, and then and I know that's kind of the MOBA, the MOBA idea, but still, what I was expecting didn't translate into a fun board game for me.
No, I agree with you. It just became, it was just rinse and repeat. I think the fundamental idea of turning a MOBA into a board game just doesn't work. I think that's my experience now.
So do we want to mention our last one, which is one both you, Andy, and I had on our short list?
I think we should.
4 games.
I think we should.
Which we covered in depth in the last episode, so I think we can cover this quite shortly. And that's Tapestry from Stonemaier Games. I think we're both expecting big things from Stonemaier, because this is the first game he has designed himself in 2 years. Is that right? It's about 2 years since Charterstone came out? Something
like that, yes, and it's his 5th. His personal 5th. It's Jamie's 5th game that he's designed.
And, well, I didn't like it because it felt like a bag of random game mechanics held together with sellotape. I found it a bit too random. I'm not going to use the word unbalanced, because I'll get people hammering their keyboards, writing to me, going, "Oh, you haven't played it enough." True, I haven't. I'm not going to say it's unbalanced, but I am going to say that it's
very swingy.
Mm.
Depending on what cards come out, and more importantly, when those cards come out, which isn't good. And I really don't think the theme held at all. It just seemed to be very mechanical.
There's a theme?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. You're supposed to be building a civilization, but it just really didn't feel like that because there was no tech tree. There was no advancement from, flints and rocks and fire all the way up to mobile phones and space flight. Whereas you get something like Civ, where obviously there's an obvious progression of your civilization. Whereas in this, you could be just as likely to invent toothpaste as you could to invent nuclear bombs. It was weird.
Nonsensical.
Yeah, exactly. I can see what he was trying to do in terms of making it light and accessible, because the rule book is literally 3 pages, 3 big pages, but still pretty straightforward. But yeah, I found it a bit disappointing. It was not up to his past level anyway.
I really enjoyed the first game I played and really hated the second game I played, which may or may not have something to do with the fact that I absolutely owned it in the first game and sucked in the second game. And none of those were because I made really good strategy choices in either game. Like, I felt like I did the best that I could with the hand that I was dealt in both games. I even had a very similar strategy in both games. It just, in one game it worked fine, and in one game it really, really didn't.
I think that'll probably come down to the Civ card that you had, and probably obviously the Tapestry cards as well. And therein lies the problem, as you say. You can.
The Civ card absolutely humped me. It was just shit.
Yeah. So yeah, disappointing from Stonemaier there. And considering I was a big fan of J-Dog's work up until recently, that is a bit of a disappointment, especially for me. Alora quite likes it. She's still a bit of a fan of it. I think we'll probably end up playing it again, but
I would like to play it again. I just to like have that third. Is it two that were good or 2 that are bad experience-wise?
Yeah.
Third data point to make the proper. Is it a line or is it a curve?
Yeah. That's it, exactly. And also, it does suffer a massive amount of overproduction. The buildings in it are lovely, but they are utterly unnecessary. So you're paying £70 for a £30 game. Enough
negativity. Let's speak about the best games that came out in 2019 that we have played. Of course, we haven't played everything. There's some notable exceptions from this list of games that we've just not had a chance to play at all. Mm-hmm. I've noticed some games that people are mentioning elsewhere, like Makaibo seems to be coming up. Although we played Cooper Island once, I don't really played it enough. There's a few others I'm seeing other people mention turn up on other people's lists that I've not even seen. Never mind played.
Yeah.
So, who wants to kick us off? Mr. Lewis, you are supposed to have 3 games on your list and currently have 9, so get off the pot or stop this and pick one.
I'm getting comfortable reading the paper while I drink my coffee and have my morning BM. Well, it has been quite a big year for Kickstarters for me. But some of the games that stuck out for me this year really were quite heavy ones, actually. I've gone back to my Euro roots for a lot of these. We've already mentioned Villagers, which was on our 3 for 3, which was very, very good. But I don't think it's quite good enough to make my game of the year. Nancy Narking is another notable entry. It's very straightforward, simply play a card, next person, play a card, next person. You can definitely tell it's a Martin Wallace-based game. Very nice, recently released this year by Phalanx Games. They've essentially taken Ankh-Morpork and reskinned it, but not quite good enough to make my game of the year, or even one of the top 3. So one of the ones I'm going to mention first is the game Ragusa. Which is, we played it earlier on this year. In fact, I've played it quite a few times now. Ragusa is a relatively mechanically light Euro game where you are basically sticking down houses on the corners of hexes. Each of those hexes will give you either a resource or an ability. And if you put your hex down on an ability, it kicks off that thing. If somebody else puts their building down on the hex, it will also kick off that ability for them and then for you. So there's a kind of an engine underneath it all. But it's such a simply built game that is literally put your house down, next person. It does chug a bit towards the end because there's more and more to think about, but it at no point is a slow game. But I think you, me and Adam got through it in 45 minutes, Steve?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, we rattled through it because it is just so straightforward. It's really well made. It's not expensive either, and it's about £40. So that is one of my contenders for Game of the Year.
You can find it for about 45 quid, I can tell you right now.
There you go.
May or may not have just added that to a basket.
So, Mr. Cage, have you got some games to pick?
I mean, we kind of touched on this before, that I haven't played haven't fallen in love with an enormous number of games this year. I've played a lot of the same ones as you guys, so there's going to be some crossover here. But the one that really stuck out most to me, we've already mentioned, is Tiny Towns.
Yes.
For me, that's the game from 2019 that was released this year. That is the game I've played the most, without a shadow of a doubt. And if someone said to me tomorrow, John, do you fancy a quick game of Tiny Towns? My answer would, of course, be, hell yeah. Yeah, I'd love to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's still coming to the table, still a firm favourite. I can play it with you guys who are, into much more heavy stuff. I can play it with my normal crowd that I actually tend to get to play with games, who don't ever really play proper board games. And they're still able to play it, so it's fantastic crossover. Yeah. For all the reasons we mentioned earlier, it is definitely my game of 2019. It's been released this year.
Can't argue with that. It's on my list as well, it's on my short list, so...
It was on my short list as well, actually, and I only took it off because I know you'd put it on and didn't have much to talk about, so I thought, well, we're going to cover that, so we're happy there. But I completely agree. I think it's one of those games that's it's simple to play, it's quick to play, it's got plenty of strategy, plenty of depth, and it's easy to cock up as well if you go, shit, what have I done?
It's almost guaranteed that at least one person will definitely have an oh shit moment where they suddenly spot that they've done something horribly wrong. Like, can I just undo that last move? Well, yes, but you also made another mistake 3 turns ago. Because that thing over there is going to cause you problems in about 2 turns. It's what? Oh, shit.
It's also got the all-important availability of a dick move where you can do something just to screw over an opponent.
Yeah.
Which doesn't benefit yourself at all. So,
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
For all those reasons, it's a firm favourite of mine.
So, Mr. Tudor.
Right, I'm going to be perfectly honest here. I have struggled this year. I've even struggled to make a short list or a long list. Never mind a short list, and then narrow it down to 2 or 3 games. I personally do not think, and we'll get onto this maybe a little bit later when we try and pick a game of the year. I don't think there's been a standout belting game. There's not one game which has really stood out to me and gone, this is the game of 2019. Which I've always had in the past. So I've really struggled with my list. And even now, I'm looking at my list and thinking, I'm not entirely sure I've got this right. I'm unsure here. So I will say some games I've really enjoyed. I've really enjoyed Paladins of the West Kingdom. It's one of my first picks. Only got that a couple of months ago. It's a Euro game from, I think it's Carp Hill Games.
Yes.
It is a heavy Euro. They do release games in kind of cycles. So they did the North Sea cycle, which I haven't played any of the games of. But everyone was raving about Architects of the West Kingdom last year. So when the Kickstarter came out for Paladins, I thought, screw it, I'm going to bag both.
Yes.
And we played Architects, didn't we, John, on Saturday? I think you really liked that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, predictably, I've just played the one from the previous year. And as you say, I really enjoyed it. I think Kaz really enjoyed it as well, actually.
I played Architects earlier this year as well, actually at Rich's birthday again. So, was it? No, it was a gaming club, but it was with the Worcester gaming guys. And we played it actually at speed, too fast for Luke to keep up with. He kept telling us to slow down. But no, I really liked it, and that was one of the reasons I like you, Steve. Like, no, I'm backing that. That is really worth having.
Yeah.
So Paladins is a more complicated game. Definitely a heavier game than Architects. And at first, I got to admit, I wasn't sure, but after a few games, it really sunk in. And what this is about is you have to build up you've basically got 3 kind of resources. I wouldn't call them resources, they're more abilities or levels, and you kind of have to build them up to do actions. So if one action relies on another, so 6 actions and the 3 abilities still kind of interact. And the strategy is deciding which one of these actions you're going to try and concentrate on, which means you then have to concentrate another 2 to build that action up, which is really hard for me to explain. But there's a point when me and Amanda kind of got the key, and the key is the prayer option. There's an action on the board which allows you to bring workers back and take actions again. And it's a really clever system because workers are individualized. They're all color coded, so only certain workers go into certain places.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to think about what you're going to do with your workers each round, and how you're going to try and meet objectives, or you're going to try and get victory points in other ways. There's lots and lots of ways of getting victory points, but it doesn't feel like that kind of points hard where everything you do gets victory points.
Oh, that's good.
It feels like you have to concentrate on a couple of things and get a couple of things really high up.
Right.
But there'll be a couple of backup things that you need to build into that. It looks absolutely lovely because it's the same artwork and graphic design as Architects was, so it absolutely looks brilliant. It's got the really annoying debts in, which Architects had as well. So there's some things you can do that can get you debts, which have to be paid off by the end of the game. There's also ways in which the game itself can screw you over, because in Paladins you can take conscripts, which are wild cards, workers that can go anywhere. But every time you do, you can get basically you can get arrested for it, and so there's a balance between, do I take these prisoners which give me more options and can even get me more cash, but if I have too much of this cash I get these debts which cause me problems later in the game. It's really well put together. Complete table hog, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
Takes up the entire bloody table, even though it doesn't look like it should, because there's no big board. It's just cards and coins everywhere.
Yes.
Is this similar in the same way that you tend to finish on quite close point scores, or because it's a much heavier game,
No.
do you think it swings further?
It's a heavier game, so there's a wider range of points available. Yeah, there was something quite bizarre about Architects that most games I've played have been roughly the same score. There are more points available if you can get up multiple tracks, because basically it's 6 ways in which you can score big points. And realistically, you're only going to go up 2 or 3 of these tracks in most games. But as you get better, I think you're going to try and get up to 3 or 4 of these tracks. So the real big score is going to be someone who can work out how to get up all 6 of these objectives and get the points for them.
This is another game that we shouldn't go and play with Dave Turksey. I've just got this sense that he would just see through the Matrix again and just destroy us and ruin another game for us.
That's Paladins of the West Kingdom by Carpill Games.
Should look forward to giving that a shot at some point. Probably in 2020 when it's, a game of yesteryear.
Right, another one from me is I was actually split now because there's 4 games left on my list, and there's 2 sets of 2 in a way, because 2 of the games fall into one kind of theme and the other 2 fall into another theme. The one I'm going to settle on here is the toss-up between Alien or Aliens. And by that, I mean there is either Lifeform or Nemesis. Now, Lifeform is from Whole or Nothing Productions, and Nemesis is from Awaken Realms. Now, we do like Awaken Realms. I've played Nemesis a few times before. We've covered it over the last few years. We've seen its development. And I'm going to have to go with Nemesis because it's one of...
I thought it was released last year.
It technically was. Well, I received it before December last year, but its official release was this year, according to some people.
It's one of those games that's going to fall on the boundary.
Yes.
Because some people who got the split delivery of their Kickstarter would have got the game at the very end of last year. It got released in retail about June this year. And I think if you went balls deep and got everything and wanted it all in one delivery, you would have got it this year.
Yeah. Stupid split deliveries.
I mean,
one of the top games everyone else is talking about, John, from Awaken Realms. Haven't you got that? Take your Grail.
I think it's quite good.
Yes.
But I got Nemesis so late in 2018. By the time I've actually ended up playing it, it was effectively 2019. So let's say 2019 for jazz. Close enough for government work. We'll move on.
All right.
It is, quite frankly, one of, if not the best semi-co-op game you will ever play. It's so well done that you have conflicting missions within. Basically, you're on a ship, and a bunch of Gribblies get on board, and you're obviously trying to survive and get out. But everyone has their own individual secret mission. And the good thing is you can choose one of two missions. You can either go with the corporation and work for the man, or you can have your own personal mission. But you don't get to choose your mission until the first Gribbly appears. So you're kind of basically running around the ship exploring. The ship comes out of hyperspace and everyone wakes up with the textbook amnesia, and you just got to explore the ship and basically point the homing system in the right direction, make sure the engines work, and off you go.
And make sure that you're in a stasis pod before it does.
Yes.
Otherwise, you get turned into jelly.
That's true. You're smeared across the back wall. But of course, with everyone having a different and potentially conflicting mission, and the state of the engines and the state of the homing system unknown potentially to you, and everyone being able to manipulate it, you never quite know who's on your side or not. And with the aliens running around as well, it just forms one of the best, most tense sci-fi survival games that I think you can play. Now, Lifeform is very similar, but it is a one versus many, and that's very much a get your ass out of there before the Gribbly gets you. Whereas Nemesis is you can shoot back, although a lot of the time you probably just want to run away.
Let's stick together. Yeah, let's both go through in this room. Fa-dung.
Shit.
Why did the door just close behind Andy? Andy, let me out. Andy!
Yes.
Clank, clank, clank.
So yes, Nemesis is definitely on my my list here for that, because it's just so atmospheric and so much fun.
Well, I would back that one. It's a lot of fun, that game. I mean, I did back that one. Aha. Steve, how about you?
So,
Well, how about Rory's very quiet, isn't he? What did Rory want?
Well, we've already mentioned one of Rory's, which Rory had picked Ragusa. So I'll tell you what. Let's use Rory's other two choices to kind of go through this. Now, his first choice was Bosk, which you own, don't you, John?
I do. I quite enjoyed that game. So I did think about putting this on my list, and the reason that I didn't is that I've played it 5 times now. So once when we had a demo at the expo. And then a couple of times up in Scotland and a couple of times around generally. It doesn't... So I brought it to yours to play the other day, partly because I was like, I feel like I haven't given this game enough justice. Like I haven't brought it out to the table enough times. And when I have done, quite enjoyed it. It's just... So if you haven't played the game, it's sort of split into 2 halves, right? First half, you're all kind of collectively putting down trees in a sort of grid type fashion to try and make sure that you have the most numbers of trees, so different sizes of trees count for different amounts, have the most number of trees in a particular row or column. And whoever does that stuff gets the most points from the first half. And the second half of the season is when all of those trees then drop their leaves, and you're trying to make sure that your leaves end up on the tops of the piles, so that it's your trees that the passers-by see beautifully displaying their leaves on the floor, and that'll gain you points in the second half. And I did quite like it, and I asked you the other day what you thought about it, because we didn't get to play it anyway, and I know that you played it before, Steve. And I said, there's another tree game that we all own, I think, or just about all own, which is photosynthesis. And I said, what do you think about it versus photosynthesis? Like if I said to you, let's play Bosk or let's play photosynthesis, which one would you pick?
Photosynthesis.
There you go. He didn't even hesitate when I asked him the other day either. To which I then said, well, why, Steve?
What I can't remember what I said at the time.
You said that it felt like just a more cohesive kind of game. Like all the elements that were there were all stuck together. It was really well, the theme really neatly matched the mechanics. And although I kind of like the 2-stage approach in Bosk, it does sort of feel a little bit broken up and a bit disconnected in some ways.
Yeah. I also felt that in Bosk, you can be punished for making the wrong decision too early.
Yes, and it also depends a little bit about the combinations of where everyone's trees end up. So you're trying to do sort of area control in each quadrant, I think it is, of the board, using your leaves, basically.
Yeah. It's area control in 2 different ways, isn't it? And it's area control with the leaves and area control with the trees because of what you're trying to get. I just thought for 2 games of a similar theme, yes, I agree. I thought photosynthesis was just a more coherent, more straightforward and more interesting game. I thought Bosk was interesting. I thought what it did was quite clever, especially the second half with the leaves. But it felt like it feels like 2 games in one, and it feels like it shouldn't be 2 games.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I also feel like you're always building towards one strategy in photosynthesis. Like that whole stuff is kind of glued together. Whereas you kind of almost, it felt like you sort of play 2 completely separate games in Bosk. Like, yes, you are leading up to the second half in it, but just something about the way that the 2 halves don't quite glue together for me. But Rory loves it.
Does indeed.
And I have, to be fair, had 4 or 5 games that I enjoyed. It's just not something that kind of clicks with me that says, yes, this needs to come back to the table every time.
That's fair enough. I need to pick another game. So I'm going to pick a game which Rory has also got on his list as well, actually, to talk about. So I'm going to talk about Villagers. Now, Villagers is, we've already mentioned it previously, but Villagers is a game in which you are trying to build a village. But what you're doing is you're not building houses, you're actually just trying to recruit villagers into your village to do tasks. And everything forms in little hierarchies. So you might be trying to build a hierarchy of diamond traders in the end. So to do that, you need explorers, then spelunkers, then cave miners, and so on. And what you do is you draw this little tiny list of characters you're trying to put together. But it's like a little... What you're trying to do is draft cards from this central location in order to make these. Where the interesting thing about this game is that low player counts, you've got no guarantee about what cards are going to be even in the game because a good chunk of cards get left out. Whereas in a 4-player game, there's a good chance that every card you need is there, but some other bugger's got it. So the game is all about quickly changing your strategy because you really do have to shift quick in order to get these things in to get the big points. Sticking to a strategy at the beginning of the game will lose you the game because somebody else will have the card you need, or the card you need is somewhere in the deck which you can't get to.
Yeah.
Unless you're extraordinarily lucky.
Luck does play a little bit into this, but what I really like about this game is that you can't have a strategy from the beginning and do well at this game. You have to think every turn, what's my best option? I've got this Spelunker. This Spelunker is the key in the chain and for the most valuable chain in the game, but the rest of the cards haven't come out yet. And at the moment, it's just wasting my space in my hand. And I need to get rid of this because you have to discard cards from your hand to get like the base workers. So you go, it's not working, I'm going to get rid of it. And then you can guarantee as soon as you get rid of that card, the rest of the cards in that chain will turn up. But if you'd held on to it, then it would be completely useless and be wasting time. And that's what I really like about this game.
Or you discard the card, then someone goes, oh, great, thanks very much.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting thing as well. When you discard a card, it goes onto one of the decks face down. So people can't pick up that card knowing what it is, but someone may pick it up later in the game. So you also got to be careful about what you discard because it doesn't go into a discard pile away. It goes into the centre where everyone has access to it.
Which does mean that you can potentially pick it back up again, of course. If you can remember where you put the damn thing down.
Yeah, I do quite like that mechanic about it, actually, is that you can stash it basically back into the deck. And you kind of play and you look a little bit going, well, there's 5 players left and there's going to be 5 cards coming out. If I put it there, it should come out for me. Bollocks, Steve's grabbed it. God damn it.
Again.
I also like the way that there's certain people that you build and you have to pay another player if they've got that thing which unlocks it. So the keys, all the different characters have different unlocks. Like a brewer needs a Cooper because he needs someone to make the barrels for the beer. Well, if you've got the Cooper, then you'll get lots of money from that. But if someone else has got the Cooper card, you've got to keep paying the buggers out. And there's that whole thing like, well, do I build this now, knowing that I've got to pay out cash, or do I just leave it? But again, if you've got that card in your hand, it has to go back on the deck somewhere, and someone else could add that to their deck.
Yep.
It's a very clever
I really
game.
like the fact that it doesn't limit you from doing stuff. It just rewards other people if you haven't done something to put that key in the chain in progress.
Yeah, really do like it, and it does scale well as well because you get to like 5 or 6 players. I think it goes up to 6, maybe 5. And it adds extra cards in, so the deck actually gets much bigger, and the amount of different job roles increases. So it makes more interesting things happen as well. It's just a case of, well, I know the key ones to stick to now. You get to a 5-player game, it's like, oh, I've got more options. I really need to think about what I'm doing now.
Yeah, no, it's very good. And some of the professions don't actually appear until you've got partway through the deck, because there are professions that you basically you can start with, say the woodcutter, and that'll feed wood carpenters and coopers, as you say. But there are some professions that their base level is hidden in the deck somewhere, so you've got to get to that before you can then unlock the ones that come out as well. So yeah, there's a lot going on. Very, very clever game.
This again would be on my list were it not for the fact that I haven't really got it to the table enough. But that's purely because the sort of level of gamer that I play with, I have introduced a few of them to villagers, and they have kind of just about got it. But it's hard work. Like, I will spend the entire game explaining the rules for about the 15th time, to the point where it's like, I can't actually focus on my strategy in this game anymore. I'll tell you what, I'll watch and you guys can play, and I'll just teach it. We'll just do that for the first 2 or 3, and then we'll see how we go.
That's interesting you've said that, John, because I don't think Villagers is a complicated game.
No, it's not.
But I can see where it can be quite complicated to learn how to play it, if that makes sense.
If you only play a few games a year, then something like Villagers, it's not, like you say, it's not a complicated game, but there are quite a lot of options and a couple of key bits to remember. Most people who don't play lots of games don't have that kind of, I don't know, mental glue to be able to glue all that stuff together to be able to play a game in a reasonable amount of time.
Okay.
Compared to like a heavy Eurogamer, for example. Andy, what about you? Go on, you've had 2. What's your third?
My third. Well, this is the other 2 that are similar almost in theme, in the sense that they both involve pipes. One of which is Pipeline from Capstone Games, and the other is Barrage from Cranio Creations. They are both quite complicated games, but they are very different in the way they work. Now, Steve's played both of them.
Yes, on the same day as well.
On the same day, yeah. So that was an interesting afternoon. And it was quite good because I handed Steve's arse to him in Barrage, and Steve duly took it back in Pipeline. Nice. So they both... Actually, no, I think Barrage suffered a little bit of criticism, and not undeserved, for some of the component quality choices that the producers made. Where Pipeline, I've only actually played once with Steve, so I haven't actually played it enough to get my head around it, but we both came away from that thinking, it's a bloody good game. We really need to play it a lot more, because we were both shit at it and we made bad decisions because we hadn't just not got our head around the sheer number of possibilities. And you've got to build a pipeline which allows you to pipe lots of oil, which then you need to refine into different grades of oil, which you then need to sell into different contracts. But in order to get that engine going, you have to be very quick, because the game itself rattles along quite quickly. There aren't that many turns in the game, or at least fewer than you'd expect. So you really do need to get a shift on and get your engine up and running really quickly. Whereas in Barrage, that is a heavy Euro. So you are producing electricity from water and waterfalls by building dams, hydroelectric dams, piping this water through a power station and then producing electricity. And it's essentially a race to produce as much electricity as they can in each round and then fulfill energy contracts. So basically produce enough electricity to fulfill a contract, which will then get you upgrades and rewards and points and various other bits and bobs. There's a really lovely mechanic in Barrage where you've got a wheel and there's 6 segments in it. And if you want to build a dam, you assign these little sort of components to whatever you need to build a dam. And this wheel rotates, and you can rotate it at different speeds depending on which actions you take. And those resources are completely tied up until they get released, and the wheel completely rotates to stop you spamming down too much stuff onto the maps. You've really got to think ahead about how to plan your resources and how to plan the workers that you've got in order to obtain and produce the energy that you need. And there's lots of different places on the map. You can get in each other's way. Steve got in my way a few times. You can build a dam in front of them. So there's a lot going on. And I think I'm going to have to pick Barrage, because I think it is, other than the component quality issues, which are being ironed out, it is an extremely clever game. It is a little unforgiving at times, but it's just wonderful. Very, very clever game. There's a lot going on, and it has the chance for dick moves as well.
I agree with you there, Andy, and I think it's not downplaying Pipeline. I think Pipeline is a very clever and very thinky game. I just think Barrage just does PP. I think it's just a little bit more interesting. A little bit more. The decisions you make are a little bit more complex and a little bit less obvious sometimes. So you have to think a bit harder about it. I also think too many people have made too big a deal about the components on Barrage. The way I've seen people talk about it online, I thought Barrage was going to be awful. I thought it was going to be on paper and, meeples that you need a microscope to see. In fact, one of the games we didn't mention, the biggest disappointments, I just thought about this. We not mentioned like the third of the Century games this year, which is Century New World, which has been a massive disappointment. And I think part of that is because the quality of those components, and it's not quality as in poor money spent, poor choices, little tiny meeples and paper thin, player boards.
And interestingly, that was on your picks for 2019 last year.
I actually agree with you, Steve. I was really looking forward to New World, and I was a little disappointed with it, with the flimsiness of the boards. And it's really easy to lose those meeples as well because they are so bloody small.
And I don't think New World is a bad game. I just think compared to Spice Road and Eastern Wonder, I just think it's a fairly pedestrian average worker placement game.
Agree with you.
It's a shame. But getting back onto Barrage and Pipeline.
Ironically,
I think
Pipeline was one that I'd picked.
It was?
And you haven't played.
I was really excited about it, and I was going to back it, and then Andy said he was going to back it, and I looked into it a bit more and thought, I'm not actually quite sure anymore. I'll just wait until Andy's backed it, and then if it's really good, I'll just buy a copy. I still haven't played the damn thing.
I think you will like it.
It is really good, actually. You will like it. You will like it. I think you might like it more than Barrage, actually, because there's a certain element of this kind of Tetris pieces kind of pipe manipulation, which is really quite clever. However, I think it will also melt your brain. It'll take 2 hours to play half a game with you because you'll think of every single option.
Standard.
But Barrage is brilliant. I think the theme runs through it as well. It's a Euro game with a really good theme that makes perfect thematic sense. Water flows down the mountainside, it hits a dam, it goes through a hydropower station, you generate power. Energy demands are increasing, so you have to keep making more power every round. It's bloody difficult.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I'm terrible at that game, but I agree, Andy. If I had this game, I think this would have been on my shortlist as well.
I agree.
Because I really do like this game.
I need to play that as well. Gosh, it's going to be a very busy 2020. It's a good job I've got nothing else that's going to consume lots of my time in 2020.
No, not at all, John.
Realistically, how long have you got?
No, probably no more than until the end of May. So 5 months, basically.
Best pull your thumb out your arse then, Cage, and get playing.
Yes.
Any minute now. Any minute.
Well, we have the Christmas break, we have Easter, and then it's game over.
Or maybe I'll just, need a break from the whole having a small human, and I'm pretty sure it's easy, so Kaz could look after it for an evening. She won't mind that. So if anything, there's going to be more opportunities for me to play board games. Let's stick to that optimistic / unrealistic expectation.
Unicorn hunting, yes, okay.
Yeah.
Right then, boys. We've picked 8 games so far. We usually pick 9.
So what's yours?
So what's mine? Now, I've got 2 left on my shortlist, which are 2 very different games.
2?
And I feel as if I can't pick both of them. Yeah, I've still got 2 of the games left on my shortlist because I had 4 on my shortlist.
Oh.
Okay.
And I feel as if I can't mention both of them because I think that'd be cheating. But
Andy.
John did only just mention 1. Now, both... Right, okay. I'm going to go Andy's mentality here. These are both very different thematic games, but they both are
have some tenuous
similar,
link.
and they have a tenuous link in that what they've both done is they've both taken elements from previous games and improved upon them.
Okay.
So the first of these last 2 picks is Marvel Champions, the card game, and the second one is Lord of the Rings: Journeys in Middle-earth.
Ooh.
Wow, those are different games.
They're very, very different games, but bear with me. There is logic to my madness.
Go on, enlighten us.
So, Marvel Champions takes basically the Fantasy Flight LCG living card game model that they started off with the Lord of the Rings card game, funnily enough, then moved on to the Arkham Horror card game. And this is the 3rd iteration of this concept. You can feel how it's pulled together the bits from the previous games. But what it's made is this brilliantly streamlined very thematic card game based in the Marvel universe. So you're playing a superhero, you've got to kick the shit out of a supervillain, you're doing it in teams, and you basically draw cards, which all cards can be used as resources. You spend resources to take actions. And the two kind of actions you're really doing is you're either hitting the bad guy or you're trying to stop the bad guy from advancing their scheme. If the scheme gets too advanced, they evolve and something bad happens and eventually you lose the game. Where it's really clever is your superhero has a card, has two sides, and you can either be your own superhero or your alter ego. And where it's quite clever there is you can only do certain actions in certain roles.
Okay.
So if you're a superhero, it's the only time you can attack, and it's also the only time you can get attacked. As your alter ego, you don't get attacked, but you can't attack back, and it's the only time you can defuse the scheme. So what it's done is it's taken all this the history of Lord of the Rings and Arkham Horror and whittled it down and made it much more accessible. You can see they've gone, right, this is Marvel, this is a big thing, it's going to go to people beyond what normally play our games. Mm-hmm. So there's none of this really complicated deck building. It's set up where you just grab a deck, which is the Iron Man deck or the Captain America deck, and you can tweak the decks afterwards, but it basically says, add these cards to it and off you go. Lord of the Rings takes what they've already done with Mansions of Madness and the solo modes for Descent and Imperial Assault and takes away a little bit of the randomness in it. So it's very similar to Mansions of Madness, but it's set in Lord of the Rings and you're moving across Middle-earth, going on quests. But what it does is it changes the dice rolling of the previous games into a card draw system. We have a small deck of cards, and what you're trying to do is draw successes from the deck, which means there's a little bit of knowledge about what's going on. So if you've drawn loads of successes, you know there's no successes left in that deck, and so your chances of succeeding on the actions are going to be extremely limited.
You're about to have a very bad day.
Yeah, and it draws on the Mansions of Madness ideas. There's a story and there's threat, so there's little threads you can go to and grab and follow this and try and do the quest. And the way I'm saying this out loud, I think I've made my mind up, because although I really love Lord of the Rings, I think it fails on a few things that make Mansions of Madness really good.
Okay.
Number one, it's a campaign and the campaign only.
Right.
So you have to play the missions in order.
Ooh.
And unfortunately, that is really difficult for me to get to the table. Mansions of Madness, let's play Mansions of Madness. You get it out, you play a random adventure, off you go. Lord of the Rings, it's you have to start from the beginning and you have to build up your characters and level up your characters.
You can't sort of pick and choose and bring some in and drop some out.
No, it's a campaign game and you start from the beginning and you build the decks and off you go. And it's also, I think, after seeing the game a few times, after seeing Mansions of Madness and Imperial Assault and all them, I'm starting to see what's happening behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So the whole building of threat, it's a game in which you can't dawdle, you've got to sprint to the finish rather than managing the monsters kind of thing.
One of those.
And I think because of that reason, I've just decided that Marvel Champions is a better game.
Yeah, well done.
Excellent.
Marvel Champions, just as I said, it takes the concepts that they've already made in LCGs and they've turned it into something a lot more streamlined and a lot more interesting, but without the whole crap that comes with building decks and making encounter decks out of things. It's the best iteration, I think, of that solo cooperative living card game, Fantasy Flight Games.
There you go.
Brilliant. So, we have 9 games. Are we willing to put a stake in the ground? That's the question.
Well, before we put a stake in the ground, before we do that, we did ask our listeners this question. Now, originally, I did want to also put a questionnaire on our Facebook page, like a little voting thing, for people to vote on what their favourite game of the year was. Unfortunately, because Facebook is shit, if you do it on a Facebook page, I can do a vote, a survey of only 2 options.
Right.
But if I put a poll on a group page, I can put as many options as I want and people can add their own options.
Interesting.
So I went and got onto the Board Game Trading and Chat UK group and I put a poll up there and just asked people. And I came as honest and said, we're doing this in the podcast. I can't add it to the Facebook groups, so I'm putting it here. Everyone can vote. And so we had lots and lots of votes. I'll count down. So...
Watch your pop peppers. We're in the top 10. We're counting down. It's Sunday afternoon. It's the top 10 board games of 2019.
So I'm going to start at number 5. Well, we can start with 10. Hang on, I'm going to count down now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So number 10 was Barrage.
Ooh.
Quite low on the list. Number 9 was Tainted Grail.
Ooh.
Hang on.
Which I think we're gonna count that as a 2020 game ourselves, because if you went for the game itself, if you split deliveries, you would have had Tainted Grail.
I didn't like pick split deliveries. What was I thinking?
It's fine, John. We're counting it as a 2020 game. It's fine. None of us have played it.
Yeah, but I won't have any time to play it next year. It's a really poor life choice.
Well, all right. Steve and I will play it while you sit holding the baby.
Hang on a minute.
It's only fair. It's for the benefit of our listeners, John.
It is.
You?
It's just science.
Greater good.
They're greater good.
The greater good. Next on the list was Crystal Palace, which is a game I don't think any of us have played.
No, I've never even heard of it.
After that is Ragusa.
Okay.
Then Paladins of the West Kingdom.
How many of these have you voted for, by the way, Steve?
Only one.
Okay.
You can only vote for one. Next was Tapestry.
Ooh, that's a surprise entry.
Yeah. Surprise entry. I think a lot of people actually quite like Tapestry, which I'm surprised at. Next, which is number 4, was Marvel Champions.
Okay. So we are at least agreeing with our listeners so far, mostly.
We're on point.
A bit.
Number 3 was Tiny Towns.
Hey, not far.
Number 2 was Nemesis.
Boom.
And number 1 is a game none of us have mentioned in this podcast so far.
Oh.
And that game is Wingspan.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that is a surprise entry. Well, it is and it isn't.
No.
It does seem very popular.
Wingspan had a lot of votes. And I was quite surprised how popular it was.
Yeah, because
before we go any further, and we'll talk about Wingspan in a second. So we also put it on the Board Game Geek Guild 2426, by the way. So we've got some written answers. So I'm just going to list out some people and some games because we've had all kinds of written responses. So Ed Crutchington says his top 2 games were Copenhagen, which we've not played, Tapestry, again, Wingspan again, Star Wars Outer Rim, which we said we were disappointed by, but his top choice was Cthulhu Death May Die.
Oh, that's the one with the stupid model, isn't it?
The not so many, the massive.
Yes.
Bought Monkey said Awkward Guests, which I don't think I've even heard of.
I've heard of it, but I've not played it.
John Boy John.
Not enough Johns in this world.
Is another one who picks Marvel Champions, but also mentions Undaunted Normandy and Air, Land and Sea, which I think is Heroes of Air, Land and Sea.
Yeah.
Colin, he suggested actually games which are new to him, which was Snowdonia Deluxe Master Set, Gloom of Kilforth, City of Kings, Dawn of the Zeds, and D-Day Dice. And his top pick from 2019 was Set a Watch, which again is another game I haven't played.
Oh. I have to admit, I was considering. Well, I put on a game, the Snowdonia game was on my long list, but I took it off because I only actually played it twice. But it is good. I like Snowdonia. It's a fairly straightforward worker placement game with a few additional bits and bobs from Tony Boydell, and it's got lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of expansions in it. Like seriously, there is a deck of cards, I swear to God, about 8, 9, 10 inches long, and you use about an inch of cards in the actual base game. The rest of it is just expansions. It's mental.
Just the tip, you say?
Just the tip, yes.
Have we finally tainted you a bit, Steve?
Yeah. Andy was explaining it, so I had to Andy myself into that, yeah.
Right, gotcha.
But yes, it's Snowdonia is actually surprisingly good.
So Nick Vega has another vote for Cthulhu Death May Die. Also mentions Escape Plan, which is a Vital Lacerda game, which I don't think any of us have played, but I'm sure Andy has bought on Kickstarter. And also mentions Trismegistus.
See, I quite liked Trismegistus, but obviously we've talked about that in the past. Quite complicated. I don't think it's as accessible as Solkan or Tuatha Dé Danann, but I did like it.
Particularly as you guys have categorically said you will not play it with me.
Well, there is that, yes.
There is that, yeah.
Harsh.
And then Phil Fennerty says Copenhagen, which again is another game I've not played, and Villages. Also says he's made his own awards up. So Phil puts Don't Believe the Hype Award is Tapestry.
Agreed.
Which I think we agree with. And the award for worst design choices for game components was Century and New World. For the same reasons we just said as well.
There we go. Wow, we're actually in tune with our listeners. That is quite cool.
Somewhat of
He
a
does
shock.
ask a question
and
as
quite
well.
Cool. Oh, go on.
So Phil Fennerty does ask a question. He says, final question. We've had a rash of legacy games and a gazillion Roland Wright games.
Mm-hmm.
He actually writes as Roland Wright, not Roland Wright.
There is actually a game called Roland right now. Have you seen?
Yeah, it looks awful. Looks bloody awful. So Phil asks, what's the next big fad in game mechanics?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's sort of big story-driven dungeon crawlers because I've backed 2 that haven't arrived yet.
I don't know.
Based on what our listeners have said and what we've all said, do we have a Game of the Year decision? Are we bold enough to make that decision this year?
I think I am. But
go on then. What convince us, Andy?
It's not. The thing is, we've talked behind the scenes here at Collider Towers about this, and Steve's alluded to it earlier on in the cast that it has been a difficult year to pin down a number of games. For one reason or another, I don't think there's any single game really that's absolutely wowed us. I think Tiny Towns has probably come the closest in terms of the fact that we've all bought it and we all really like it. But I'm torn between obviously the 3 I've mentioned, but I think purely because it's the game I actually want to play the most, even now. For me, it's Barrage.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it's kind of my pet genre anyway. You know, it's heavy Euro, there's lots of thinkies, there's networking in it, and there's horrible decisions. It's quite punishing if you're not doing very well, but you can also dick people over. So, and other than some minor component quality issues which are being sorted out, it is lovely. It's very well made for the most part. It goes together well. It's actually fairly well written, rules-wise, and it's just a brilliantly good game.
I'd say collectively, the thing that we've agreed most on is villages and tiny towns. Like if you're going to say that collectively, what's our, between all of us, most liked game, it's probably between those 2. Villages was on almost 4 of our lists. Tiny Town's been mentioned multiple times. It's on a couple of our lists, but none of them felt like, it wasn't like one of them just went bang. That is hands down, sheer genius.
I agree.
So maybe this is the year we don't have a.
I think it's a joint winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a year when we cannot pick one game. I think, in fact, I looked back at. I think last year we didn't pick one game. I think we struggled in the same way because we jokingly say, "Oh yeah, it's difficult to pin these things down." Well, one of the problems we have is there's so many games coming out now. It's difficult for us to play all of them, but it's even more difficult for all of us to play all of them.
Yes, definitely.
That's the hard
bit. We've talked Barrage and Pipeline, which are both games that I think, John, you'd love both of them, but finding the time to fit that in, amongst other things, just finding game time can be difficult. Although I was looking at my stats, and John, I've played games with you almost as much as my wife.
Weird, right?
Give me the stats. It's really weird. Like, John is like the person I played the most games with. It could be because I play shorter games with John, or when we go to a convention rather than playing at home, when we play like games for like 3 days solid. But it's quite bizarre. You come quite high up there.
I think we do have a tendency to sit down and play multiple games when we do. It's just that it's a while between those periods.
Yeah.
Whereas, you come to me or I come to you, it's usually right. Barrage or big super heavy Euro, bang! Let's do that. We play one game in 3 hours.
It's a big super heavy Euro, which takes us 3 or 4 hours to play. Yeah. So I'm almost tempted to say it's almost a joint. Is it a double joint or a 3 joint?
3-way. Snigger.
3-way. Is it a 3-way split? A 3-way split between Villages, Tiny Towns, and Barrage, and on the very reason that we can't pick one, the 3-way split means it's a joint, which of course lessens the impact for all of them, but means that none of them, not one single game, shines as like the utmost game.
There is one thing that I think we could unanimously agree we've all absolutely loved playing this year. Like, absolutely loved it and played it more than any other game for the entire year.
I see where this is going.
And that's D&D.
Definitely.
It's true. It's collectively the most played game by any of us throughout the whole year. 100% wins hands down. And in fact, even just numbers of hours played, it probably outshines other games put together. Possibly.
Must be in excess of 100 hours each.
Mm.
So there you go.
Yeah. Is that the cop-out we used last year
Probably.
as
Oh,
well?
God, I hope not. Well, I wasn't here to cop it out, so it's my cop out this year.
Well, there you go, folks. That's a completely ununanimous decision.
Clear as mud, right?
True to form, then. The Venn diagram has yet again failed to overlap.
Yep.
Oh, dear. I mean, we did actually say at the end of last year, maybe we'll have played enough games from 2018 so we can pick a best game of 2018. But I've looked at our list of games from 2018. I don't think we have, actually.
Some of them still in a shrink. How long? How many years back are we going to start doing these retrospectives? Like 2025 will be like all the way back to 2018. Finally played that game of whatever it was.
Well, this is why we've got the New to Us award.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's interesting, actually. On our 2018 podcast, there's a lot what we missed section, and I mentioned Everdell and Blackout Hong Kong, which are two games I still haven't played.
I think you'll find Everdell interesting. I was going to put it on a couple of these lists, actually, for various reasons. I've played it again recently with a 4-player, and it's good, but it does suffer a little bit of luck of the draw.
Okay.
Plus, the tree is a waste of bloody time. Looks nice, but it's a pain in the ass.
Right then, folks. After not coming to a serious solution, I think it's time to draw this to a close before the rabble-rousers and mobs start getting us with pitchforks and throwing stones at us for not making a decision for best game of 2019. So, we have been Polyhedron Collider. I have been Steve Tudor. We will be back soon with our games we're looking forward to in 2020. That'll be the first podcast out in the new year. And it's just as much a notice to you guys as it is to our listeners, because you need to start thinking about that one.
Yes. So we actually need to do some research now. God damn it.
Well, Andy, you can just mention whichever games you've kickstarted and expect.
Pretty much. Of which
Same.
there are many.
Although, to be fair, looking at last year's podcast, we could probably just edit that and just put 2019 over the top of it, because most of the games we were looking forward to didn't actually come out.
True.
You speak for yourself. I'm pretty sure my list was not that inaccurate. I think one of them's still to come out, but Tangarden being the...
Well, anyway, we shall discuss that in the future. Yes. Anyway, if you want to speak to us, we are available online on Facebook and other places. We are on Twitter at PolyhedronC. I'm also at Waffle Madenga.
I am at Sonic H with 0.
I'm at John_Cage, and Rory, when he is here, is at Rory J. Summers.
We also have a Facebook page, and we are also on Board Game Geek Guild number 2726. We
mentioned D&D. If you fancy a bit of that, live every Thursday, although probably not for the next week or two. You can find us on twitch.tv/Polyhedron Collider or youtube.com/user/Polyhedron Collider. And since I'll actually have some time over Christmas and some bandwidth, who knows, I might even upload some previous episodes for you lovely listeners.
I wouldn't hold your breath, though.
Rude, man. Just rude.
True to form, though. Prove me wrong, Mr. Cage. Go on.
All right, maybe I will.
Do it.
We also have some reviews and news over at polyhedronscollider.com, although I've got to admit, in the past, we've put a load of stuff up over the end of the year. We've put on our personal lists. I don't know if I've got as much time this year to add stuff to there, so we'll see what gets added over the next few weeks. But otherwise, we should be back in a new year. As I said, with our look forward to 2020. We shall see you then. Happy gaming.
And happy Christmas.
Catch you later in the new year.